has been a lifelong interest, has had a lifelong interest in astronomy since her childhood in Midland. She's been a member of HAS since 1980 and has held several roles and responsibilities: treasurer, education chair, and also the novice chair for 9 years. So Debbie was the Chris Morissette before, right? So she participates in outreach programs and is a volunteer telescope operator at George. In 2017, Debbie was recipient of the International Dark Sky Association Award for education of governmental officials about outdoor lighting issues. And in 2010, her Woodside neighborhood became the first neighborhood in the Houston city limits allowed to install low glare, fully shielded decorative streetlights. So can you imagine? That's I'd love to have Debbie as my neighbor. For the past several years, she has presented concerns about the choice of high glare white LEDs, streetlights in Houston, to city officials, and hopes that the Houston area will someday join other communities in moving to warm and soft white or amber LEDs, which are recommended by the American Medical Association for their reduced glare and reduced disruption of day and night circadian function. I think we're going to learn all about that. So this talk will be about light pollution and then the medical effects that light pollution has. So not just ruining your pictures or your nighttime observing in your backyard, but light pollution has serious medical consequences. So Debbie is going to talk all about that. Thank you, Debbie.
All right, so there are many reasons people might be interested in light pollution. We're interested in it for the night sky. Some people are interested in it because they care about migratory birds. Some people are interested in wildlife. But none of that gets solved unless we can convince the general public, the police departments, and decision makers that doing light wrong is unsafe and doing light the way we want it is the safest. So that's what this talk is about. I've been speaking to the DeBakey High School for Health Professions for the last 6 years at their scientific symposium. I'm one of the few non-doctors invited and on lighting and the health effects. And every time I give this talk, I have to update it because there's something new. I was updating just this afternoon. But the reason I chose to do health is because I'm including public health, which means accidents, and mental health. And I believe these are the areas that are of most concern to the police. And I don't think, well, I've been putting all of my focus on convincing the police. We have not been able to get any meetings, official meetings with police departments, but I have great success with individual policemen. It takes me about 60 seconds to turn them around on lighting and what's safe and what's not safe. Many of them simply haven't seen what good lighting looks like. So I'm going to start out with a few basics. Let me see if it's going to, okay, if it doesn't advance, it's because we need to back out of it. Take it back to, let me try it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so back to basics. I am a member of Dark Sky International. It was renamed a few years ago. It was the International Dark Sky Association when it was founded in 1988. By David Crawford and Tim Hunter, who lived in Tucson, and they were concerned about saving the lighting around Kitt Peak National Observatory, which is outside a city of 500,000 now, Tucson. And they came up with a simple idea of, can't we just shield the lighting and point it downward? And in the case of a professional observatory, they also wanted a very narrow band amber, low pressure sodium in that case, because it has only a few colors and those can be filtered out by observatories. There are different kinds of light for different purposes. I doubt we can get that in Houston. Police departments are very concerned that we have good color rendition. They think that helps us to see better, and they want to know what color a car is or if somebody's shirt is. So we can definitely be far better in Houston, but we may not be like Flagstaff. And Tucson has actually gotten away from that. They're a little bit more broadband now, but they still have reduced their light pollution even with LED lights. I'm happy to say that since my biography, there is a second generation of Cobra heads, of the normal street lights, not decorative, which actually are better in Houston. I've seen a few around Richmond and Hillcroft. You begin to see some with just 2 strips of LEDs. They are a decidedly warmer color with better optics. So those are not like super dark sky city lights, but they are acceptable. We can live with those. And if we had that everywhere, plus if the private lighting were better, you would have to drive a lot less far, and we'd bring back the sky at the George Observatory if everybody did that. At this point, our worst lighting is either the decorative street lights, which center point is changing the white, like daylight colored LEDs. And I'm about to talk to Boulevard Oaks because that's happened over there. It's starting at West University, and they're beginning to really notice the disruption to the enjoyment of their homes and to sleep. And the other problem is private lighting, mostly business and some home lighting. That you will see that that's actually far worse now than our current street lights. So Tim Hunter and David Crawford coined the word light pollution. And a lot of people think, well, how can light be a pollutant? But it acts just like other pollutants. So on the one hand, it's solely a part of nature. So we cannot see, say, the constellation Orion. I'm down to, I think, Betelgeuse and Rigel maybe in my backyard. I'm getting down to first magnitude stars. And it's just the same way that pollution solely is a waterway or air pollution. But the other thing, which I think the decision makers will care about more, is that just like other pollutants, it affects health. So for a long time, they've been saying that lighting creates poor sleep quality, and that will be because of the way we're choosing LED lights, which I will cover in a minute. There can be indirect effects. You can have more obesity, diabetes. People may eat a few more carbohydrates to substitute for sleep. And there's also associated with poor cardiovascular health. More recently, there's a study showing that strokes go up in bright areas. And then there's a chemical effect with many cancers. These would be hormone-based cancers. But the blue light that we're choosing, which is very prevalent in the white daylight-colored LEDs, suppresses melatonin, which our bodies would normally make at night. And if that melatonin were present, that melatonin would suppress these cancers. So breast was the first one that was studied, then colorectal and prostate cancer, and now more cancers are joining, thyroid and pancreatic cancer, gastric cancers. All of these are affected by melatonin. So again, the light isn't causing the cancer, it's suppressing the melatonin, and the melatonin would have suppressed the cancer if it were in our bodies. There's also a more recent study on early onset Alzheimer's. I'll get to those when I show you those studies. So this is what Houston looks like. I like this picture because it was during Winter Storm Uri. I like the contrast between the darkness where we had the blackouts and the lighting downtown, the medical center, which they keep going for safety reasons. And you can really see the sky glow from misdirected light in Houston, how bad it is when you see that contrast. So the easy solution would be to turn off the lights, and thank you very much. I enjoyed speaking with you. Okay, but we're not cats, so we have to have some kind of light. The question is, what kind of light do we have? So there we are on the left, and I've been taking more pictures of Houston flying, and you can see the contrast between the newer white LED lights and what we used to have, which was far less bright. And then you can see Tucson, that is their LED street lighting, and they have almost every business shields its lights. And see the difference from the air. And then they also have much better, they also look much better from the ground. This is an old slide, it's actually before LED lighting, but if you get one concept, it's that if you shield the lighting and you put it only where you want it, you actually see what you're lighting much more clearly. So the bottom picture, that's not a road, the bright part is not a road, that's actually a beach. The road is closer to the buildings, and this just shows the general concept of shielding lighting, putting it only where you want it, and then you can go out to the beach and see a starry sky, and you don't need it on the beach, and the animals and the fish don't need it. So if you get only one thing from this, it's use warm shielded lighting. That's a solution to everything I'm going to talk about, and we'll talk about why the color, why the shielding, and how you balance out these different competing needs that people have. So our previous sources of light were incandescent or mercury vapor, and then we have a new kid on the block. Oh, is we getting sound?
Behold, the light-emitting diode, or LED. But where did it come from? Meet Nick Hollignac, Jr., born in Illinois in 1928. Although Nick was born in the US, his parents had immigrated from the Carpathian Mountains of Europe. During Nick's childhood, his father traveled widely, working primarily as a miner. Nick was the first member of his family to receive formal schooling. Eventually, Nick earned a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois. During this time, he worked with Dr. John Bardeen, who later co-invented the transistor. Over the course of his career, Nick has made numerous discoveries, improvements, and breakthroughs, but he's best known for one invention that outshines the rest, the light-emitting diode, or LED. But what is it exactly? First, let's start with diodes. Diodes are simple semiconductors, and the conductor material is usually aluminum, gallium, arsenide. The flow of electrons in this material can produce light more efficiently than a traditional incandescent bulb. LEDs last much longer than light bulbs, and they produce much less heat. For this achievement, Nick is sometimes known as the father of the light-emitting diode. As subsequent researchers revised his invention, the LED has spread out from labs at General Electric to countries, cities, and homes throughout the planet.
Okay, so the advantages of LED light is that they are much more efficient. That's why we're not going to be able to not have LED. What we need to do is have it done correctly. They're highly directional, which is part of the glare problem that we have. They are a point source, and therefore they almost work like a laser. They go much more in one direction. It's like concentrated shampoo. So if you have a headlights directly in your eyes, it's much brighter than the previous headlights. The white colors were at one time the most efficient as far as amount of light per watt. We are now have the soft white colors are just about as efficient, but that was one of the things we were fighting when we were first fighting these lights, is that you get the most light per watt with the whitest lights. You have to add a coating to take out some of the blue or to cover it, and that dims it slightly. The amber dims it a little bit more. But what we'll show, as I'll show you later, while you might get the most light per watt with a white light, you do not get the most visibility per watt when you're using light at night. And there are available many different colors. We don't have to choose them the way we're choosing them in many different wattages. But they're extremely efficient because they convert almost all the energy into light and almost none into heat. You can pretty much touch most LED light bulbs in your home with no problem after they've been on for a long time. And they also have extreme longevity. So that's one of the reasons you want to do it right. When you first put them in, they'll go for 10 or 15 years. It's not like, well, in 2 or 3 years, they'll burn out and you can fix the problem. Once they're in, it's very hard to get them changed. So the problem with them is that they are now so cheap to use that people just blast them everywhere. And fortunately, this business has corrected its lighting. All the ones around it are now increasing their lighting. But as someone once said, it does no good to use a light bulb that's 1/6 the energy if you use 6 times as much. So why are we doing that? Well, let's take a look.
And I just want to make a comment. It's wonderful. The more lighting we can add to an area, the safer an area is, because criminals don't like lighting. They like to be able to sneak up on you in the dark or get closer to you in the shadows, and then you walk by and you kind of become prey. So the more lighting, the better. Only downside to lighting, people need to have curtains or something, because nobody wants to have it like bright as day inside the front of their house. But overall, lighting is definitely safer for everyone.
So if we don't fix this problem, we don't fix light pollution. It's increasing by 10% every year for the last 10 years, according to ground-based studies. We do have some dark sky places. It's a lot easier to keep dark places that are already dark, to keep light from encroaching there. But the cities are getting so much worse that even the areas around the cities are getting bad. I was shocked at how bad the George Observatory was the last 2 times I was there. And that's mostly Houston's, and then Sugar Land's lighting is encroaching on it. So he's going to change his mind. This was at a talk we gave ahead of our lighting code. We do have a lighting code, it's just too limited, but it's starting to do a little bit of good. So is brighter actually better? If you haven't seen the Hitchcock movie Rear Window, I apologize, this is the pivotal scene.
What do you want from me? Your friend, the girl, could have turned me in. Why didn't she? What is it you want? A lot of money? I don't have any money. Say something. Say something. Tell me what you want. Can you get me that ring back? No. Tell her to bring it back. I can't. The police have it by now.
So if you want to know what happens, you need to get the whole movie. But clearly, at some point, brighter is not better for visibility. And this is the best illustration I could think of. So for light pollution, LEDs can go either way. They can be like that bright flash bulb and blind everybody, or they're also highly directional. You can put them exactly where you want. You can use the exact color you want, and you can use the exact brightness you want. That's a real problem. It's not the LEDs per se, it's the way we've been choosing to use LEDs. So those are two hotel rooms I stayed in, the Dallas Love Tree near the airport on the left, near Love Field, and downtown Geneva, Switzerland on the right opposite the train station. And here's that same square below. I was staying in a room about 5 floors above that on the left, and notice that the rooms were pitch dark. It wasn't until my 3rd night, I was sleeping really well, had ordinary curtains. I looked out, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like an LED lit town square. I've never seen softly used LEDs in the United States. So I went down there to photograph it. This is a soft white, not an amber, but it's a huge improvement over what Houston was doing. The other question is, how much light do you need? One of the problems that we have trouble getting across is that you don't need maximum brightness. So as you dim an LED, the glare also dims. And if you dim an LED light 50%, it appears 70% as bright to the eye. So you need to tailor it to the use. If you just want to see a parking lot around you and the people around you, you don't need to be doing surgery. You don't need lights that's surgical-like. So here's a parking lot in La Serena, Chile from the 2019 Eclipse Airbnb. And it was just very subtle all the way across the parking lot. This is a parking lot near me in Houston, Chimney Rock and Braeswood, and the lights are pointing straight out are completely superfluous. I was actually there when they were putting them in. There's additional lights pointed downward. And I talked to them about that. They said, well, this is what they want. I was asked to do this. And those lights that are pointed outward actually jump over the buildings and light up the cul-de-sac behind them. It almost completely misses the parking lot. So because of this kind of lighting, 80% of the world's population cannot see the Milky Way from their home. I remember Bill Spitzeri, one of our members from this, said he grew up in the south side of Chicago. He said when he was a kid, he could see the Milky Way. So at night, brighter is not better. What's the physiology behind that? Well, the human eye has an astonishing dynamic range of about 1 to 1 billion, or 20 camera stops, so we don't have it all at once. So we can only see about a 1 to 1,000 ratio, keying off the brightest thing in our field. So on the left, you might have a very bright white street light there. And all those black areas of the picture are not actually black. It's just that your eye can't see the contrast. Below a certain threshold, everything turns black. You can go out and have someone just hold up their hand and block the street light, and all of a sudden everything behind it shows up. Same thing with headlights. So this is a famous Dark Sky International photo where the man at the gate is in both sides, and this is that effect. And again, you can take a neighbor out and do this, and all the details will come out behind. The problem with convincing people is that they don't know what they're missing. They only know what they can see. So on the left side, they'll say, well, I see a well-lit backyard. They're not aware that because of that glare, they're missing the guy standing at the gate until you show them. So people are not keying in to what they're missing. They're only keying in to what they can see. So glare is the enemy of the night, as we all know as astronomers, and it's a factor of brightness, color, and light scatter. And the light scatter actually has to do with the color. So blue light is shorter wavelength than redder light, and it scatters, 10 times as much as red light does. So that is, if your kid asks you why the sky is blue, the sun emits all colors, but the shortest wavelength blue light scatters the most. And so I'll get to that in a minute, but what you need to know is some terms that's called correlated color temperature, which is labeled on bulbs. And this sounds like a temperature in degrees Kelvin, but it's not the temperature of the bulb. It represents a color of light it's actually a black body measurement, but imagine a piece of iron that's heated up to say 5,000 kelvins, then it's a blue or white light. If it's heated up to only 2,700 kelvins, it's a soft white light, and if it's heated up to 2,200, it's more of an amber light. So the cooler the temperature, the warmer the color of the light. And the problem with the short wavelength light, and this is one thing we need to understand when we talk to the public, is that it's a double-edged sword. The reason it's used in operating rooms, that short wavelength light gives you the best resolution. It's also stopping your pupil down to the smallest slit, which also helps with resolution. But on the other hand, for us at night, the short wavelength light also scatters the most, so it creates the most glare. These light bulbs are all the same wattage, and as you can see, the glare gets much better as you get down into the warmer colors on the left. So at first we were trying to get the city to use the 2 colors on the left, and now we'd actually like to get into some of the amber colors. But we've made it to here. Houston's made it to over there, at least. We were over here with the 4000K. So for the best visibility, you want to reduce glare. And this is another thing that's hard to get across to people. The first picture I could find on the internet of warm LED lighting, I wrote the Dark Sky International. I said, I need to show the city council pictures of warm LED streetlights. Well, we don't have any. So I found this one in a brochure, and that's a street in Germany. And Centerpoint was saying, well, if we shield the light, we're gonna have to use twice as many poles. But I want you to notice that it's the exact same poles. Theoretically, the lights on the left, which are actually metal halide, are actually spreading out. We see the slide of the light. They're actually spreading the light more than the lights on the right. The lights on the right just do their area, but they don't double up on the next street light. The camera works similarly to the eye. We call it the zebra effect. So even though the street on the left is completely lit, we can't see it because we're seeing that white glare. So by shielding it and also dropping the wattage, you're able to see it appears more evenly lit. This is not intuitive to most people. So we have a number of demonstrations to show people that. And that's why it's very hard to talk to people without some kind of physical, a PowerPoint or a lamp demonstration or a night tour, which Houston has not wanted for years. It's very hard to get this across unless people see it physically. So this is one of our best ideas from Jim King, a member of the club, and he was with Steve and Amelia Goldberg after an outreach at St. Cecilia High School, Catholic High School. And they had this idea to have Amelia walk from left to right. She's going to be the shadow on the left. And there's only one security light. The second one is a reflection in a catacorner building in the glass. Doesn't matter. So let's see what she looks like as she walks in front of the white lights. And because of this phenomenon, we've been photographing sites of auto pedestrian accidents. A lot of them are happening because of what you're about to see.
Okay. Oh, it says recording, I guess.
Or not see.
That is a huge difference in visibility in my book.
So this is one of the ways I talk to individual policemen. This works in 20 seconds to turn them around. I like this video because it serendipitously also happens to have a couple different kinds of lights. It's got shielded warm light on the left. From our point of view, shielded white light, and you notice it kind of looks sort of sallow on the right, and then glare in the middle. So the other problems, light, health, and the environment. So as far as the physical health problems, white light is not natural at night. We evolved in an environment where the blue light in our environment was from sunlight when the sun set, and all we had was firelight and candlelight after that. So we didn't have zero light. We had light with no blue frequency in it. So we now have this, we evolved to have this cycle where when the sun's shining, our bodies create cortisol, it makes us feel alert. And then when the blue light disappears from the environment, our bodies start to make melatonin. And then we can sleep well, and it prevents cancers, and then the blue light comes back. We have now disrupted that only in very recent times. So melatonin is actually most suppressed by blue frequency light. It's suppressed weakly by warmer light, but not as strongly. So here's another one showing this red one shows where the LED street lights, when they were wider, were the most strong frequency, exactly where melatonin is suppressed. So the cities were claiming that, well, that's not a problem because the moonlight is white. It's 4,000 K. Now I know for sure, after Artemis 2, it was explained to me that what the moon does is that it actually does have some warmth on the surface. It's not just all gray. And what it's doing is it's taking 6,500 K very blue-white light from the sun, and it's reflecting it off a warmer surface, and it's mostly taking out that blue by the time it gets back to us. Whereas a LED street light that has a lot of blue in it is 30% blue frequency light. So they're not the same thing, even though the Kelvin number is very similar. The other thing is a street light is much brighter, and it's on 24/7. The moon goes through phases, but a full moon is still 30 times fainter than an LED street light. So the health problems due to the suppression of melatonin at night, we covered this a little bit. Diabetes, weight gain, depression also affects mood, and then a significant increase in some of the cancers. And now there's going to be more and more cancers. So I'll go into some of those. This is Dr. Mario Mata. I finally met him in person when I spoke to Dark Sky, Massachusetts this past November. He spoke to HAS, I think 1 or 2 years ago. It's on video on our YouTube channel. And he was one of the co-authors of the American Medical Association paper on how cities should use LED light. And he's also testified before the United Nations on this issue. So back then they were saying no wider than 3,000 K, and they were explaining both the glare issues, the visibility issues, and the human health issues. So, okay, now we get into the studies. This is a study out of Chicago and does affect us here in Houston. I have to admit, though, the study was between darkness and bright light. But what they found was that birds would stay infected with West Nile virus longer. That would give mosquitoes more time to bite them and then pass it on to humans. This is probably one of the most striking of the studies. This is a ground-based study in Madrid and Barcelona, which were early adopters of white LED streetlights, and is a comparison of the warmly lit neighborhoods versus the white lit neighborhoods. The first results to come out were that they found double the prostate cancer risk and 50% more of the breast cancer risk. And then a couple years later, they came out with the colorectal cancer results in 2020, I think. That was 60% more colorectal cancer. It was on an exact sliding scale. So they did find if you had really good blackout shades, you could mitigate the risk, but it was exactly the more blue light exposure, the higher the cancer risk. Lately, young adults being diagnosed with late-stage colon cancer has been in the news. And this is more conjecture on my part, but I've been telling, because of that earlier study, which was not focused on young people, I've been telling the kids at the DeBakey High School for Health Professions, this at least needs to be studied, because for years they've been saying, we don't know the cause. It might be the usual things like super over-processed foods and obesity, but over and over again, the articles were saying, but my patients are healthy. They run marathons, they eat organic food. There's got to be something else. So they've been talking about this unknown environmental factor forever, including like a couple of months ago, still saying unknown environmental factor. So over here it says, at the bottom line, he hypothesizes there's an outside factor science hasn't quite found yet. So this is Dr. Kimmy Ng a few years ago. She is the director of the Dana-Farber Young Onset Colorectal Cancer Center in Boston.
Overall, colorectal cancer rates have been declining over the last few decades, and deaths from colorectal cancer have also been declining. Unfortunately, that benefit has not extended to young people under the age of 50, where we have seen steady rises in both colon and rectal cancers in both men and women since the mid-1990s. The latest statistics point out that colorectal cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related death in young men under the age of 50, and the second leading cause of cancer-related death in young women. Unfortunately, we do not know what is contributing to the rise in young-onset colorectal cancer. It is thought that it is likely environmental factors, perhaps in the diet and lifestyle, perhaps obesity, that may be contributing to the rise. The United States Preventive Services Task Force recently changed the age at which to begin colorectal cancer screening from age 50 down to age 45. It is important that if you are at average risk, that screening begins at age 45. Some of the red flag symptoms of colorectal cancer to look out for include having blood in the stool, unintentional weight loss, persistent abdominal pain, change in bowel habits, or a new diagnosis of anemia, which can manifest as fatigue or shortness of breath with exertion. If any of these symptoms are happening, it is important to seek prompt attention from your primary care physician.
Okay, so at that time already there were studies showing that there was an effect of melatonin that it could act as an antioxidant suppressing colorectal cancer at that time. Now I should say everything I'm saying about colorectal cancer is connecting the dots conjecture on my part. We finally have a study, but they've almost been ignoring completely circadian function and colorectal cancer when trying to study it in young people. The actor Chadwick Boseman, is that his name? Black Panther was 43 years old. We've had another young actor die. There are people dying at 35. What's really interesting is much more recently, in a very recent magazine article, February 2026, I saw Kimmy Ng's name again. And she says that too many of their patients are young and healthy. She says way too many healthy people for it just to be the usual risk factors. So she's now saying even more strongly that she thinks there's an unknown environmental factor. The other thing is this an entire generation. We had one generation that didn't have it when they're young, and now a new generation is getting it quite a bit more when they're young. So I finally found this study, which is the first direct study I've seen of circadian function and colorectal cancer in young people. What they found was a disruption was aging young colons, even beyond older people with colorectal cancer. And what they were focusing on was the microbiome. So I looked it up. Can melatonin affect the microbiome? And the answer is yes, melatonin does affect the composition of the microbiome. So a few years ago, let me see if I have her in here. I'm going to get to Dr. Chen Xiao, who works at UT Health Sciences Center. And I asked her about this because she studies exterior light and health. And she said, well, it's probably not the blue light, it's probably the microbiome. I talked to her much more recently. I'm trying to get her together with Kimmy Ng. She said, I now agree with you. I think that we should be at least studying blue light to see whether that has to do with all these young onset cancers. The other thing is that there's multiple cancers that are going up. I figured if it's blue light, it wouldn't be only colorectal cancer. And sure enough, all the other cancers are finding that go up with suppression melatonin are also going up in young people. So we also have a much more recent study, light pollution as a new Alzheimer's risk factor, and it was found to be the strongest factor out of many factors in causing perhaps the onset of Alzheimer's under the age of 65. People think that sleep is extremely important to preventing Alzheimer's. There's also macular degeneration worries. I'm constantly facing strong white light when I'm driving at night, and I drive at night quite a bit. And another more recent study is on stroke. So that's also, this is March 2024. They are also associating both light pollution and noise pollution with stroke. This is Dr. Chen Xiao, and I found her because I was curious about pancreatic cancer. I had two friends who died of pancreatic cancer in one of the earliest areas to get the white street lights in my area. And it didn't mean that that caused their cancers. One of them was a chemistry professor. But they were both slender. One was 62 and one was 44. And it just made me curious. And at the time, I was able to find studies that showed that adding melatonin to chemotherapy, including for pancreatic cancer and many other cancers, would often prolong life or make the chemotherapy more effective. But her name came up on a study in which she found 27% higher pancreatic cancer rates in brightly lit areas. And she said it was the highest elevated risk was for the people least at high risk ordinarily. They weren't, no obesity, they ate well. The 27% jump was for people who would not normally get pancreatic cancer. She also found 55% higher thyroid cancer. Now, she's been using NASA surveys, and there's some flaws to that because most NASA satellites are actually cutting out blue light or don't see it well because they want to see everything well. Blue light creates glare. She's now working with Adler Planetarium. She told me they have now launched the satellite which will see blue light versus warm light. Before that, the best pictures we had were the International Space Station photos, probably especially Pettit's photos because he's able to get clear pictures of cities. But they will now be using large surveys really showing the blue light versus the warm light. The other thing is pediatric thyroid cancer came up within the last year as also elevated 23% higher in the brightest neighborhoods. Now, all of this so far is correlation, not direct causation, but cancer tumors have been grown in the lab and they have been shown to grow faster or to be slowed down by melatonin to grow faster when melatonin is absent. So there is a known suspected mechanism for suppressing melatonin and having cancers grow faster. The other thing I think the police would be interested in is mental health. So poor sleep in young people definitely increases juvenile delinquency. One study found that if the kids slept for fewer than 5 hours, violence went up dramatically. And now we know that the white light is most severe in the low-income neighborhoods. That's certainly true in Houston. So this is Dr. Chen Xiao is commenting on this, that she feels like it's an environmental justice issue. So here again is one study that directly talks about outdoor light, not just sleep, but outdoor light and mood disorders in adolescents. And just a few, like maybe in the past 2 weeks, I heard an NPR study or a story that they were talking about, a study in which they found that adolescent sleep patterns were getting worse and worse. So now 77% of adolescents don't sleep enough. And the number of adolescents who have the less than 5 hours went up from 16% to 23%. And especially among young people of color, guess where they all live. So I will show you their apartment complexes in just a minute. And also affects middle-aged people. I think that's a middle-aged study. So this is apartments at Chimney Rock and Glenmont. Notice on the right how they never experience nighttime over there. They have these 3 incredibly high glare pointed outward LEDs pointed at them, and now the apartment complex itself has installed more white light. The Texas Medical Center has not gotten the memo. This is the Texas Medical Center from the top of the Blossom Hotel. And they say it's for security. So this is what we've been working on, Steve Goldberg and I, is photographing accident sites. We feel like this is the way to get to the police. So I'm not going to show you all of them. I have an entire PowerPoint on accidents on the homepage of my website, softlighthouston.com, where it's just a catalog of accidents and different kinds of accidents, including rear ends with police cars and aviation accidents, which I will cover a little bit. But the one on the left is actually the first one I looked at, and it was a single light, the one in the background. Back then, I didn't have the ability on my phone to show both the poor visibility and how bad that glare was. So I toned down that picture, but the glare was really extreme when I'm sitting there naked eye. On the right, you see a dark sky city streets. That's Tucson on the ground. And of course, people think in dark sky cities, you can't see anything. This is what I call the Where's Waldo effect. This is on Gessner. And this would be a situation in which theoretically, you can see the person crossing the street. Someone was hit here and was in critical condition. But it'd be like a Where's Waldo thing. There's so many bright lights, the person crossing would be very inconspicuous and faint. Let's go for a drive in Houston, see what happens.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
So I don't know how many of you saw them for the 6 seconds you had to see them, but I want to show you something else that was on that drive. First of all, this is dash cam video. Steve Goldberg and I drove the same route, and the effect of seeing them at the last minute is what I would have expected. So where the one on the left was killed, the 2 others jumped out of the way, and there was a 4th person crossing the street who hadn't reached the median yet. So this was Desire Poole, who was a 41-year-old mother. She had dropped her card, and I can tell you where she was standing. She had business lights on both sides of her, not glare directly at the driver. When we got to that point, it actually was very easy to see the crosswalk. The problem was the lead up. You wouldn't see it much ahead of time. So the effect that she had, where suddenly she sees them jumping out of nowhere and not expecting them. So there's a lot of clutter in there. I can completely believe that she didn't see them. That's what it looked like. We think there's a number of accidents where the problem is not seeing them right where they're hit, but it's the lead up to the accident that's the problem. Some of these are left turns where there's glare, or even a right turn where there's glare hitting you while you're in that lane. And if you had stopped at the stoplight, you're past the glare and you'd be able to see the crosswalk. But if you have momentum, these are all accidents where both the pedestrian and the car has at least a blinking yellow light. If you have momentum, you're not going to see the person in time. So you have no advance notice that they're there. Now, there's another factor in this. When Steve Goldberg and I went to find out exactly where this was, there was some, on the news, there was a security camera. So we found the same parking lot. And when we first got there, that food truck only had the blue lights around it. And then while we're standing there at 8:30 in the evening, and this thing happened at 10, that really bright white light bar came. So I'm not going to play it for you again, but if I played the video for you, you would see that that bright white bar was there almost exactly where she should first be possibly even able to see the pedestrians. All she'd have to do is glance at that, have it catch her attention. You've lost 2 or 3 seconds to see the pedestrians right there. So I think we also have distraction lighting, especially with food trucks. There's another accident that was just a really gaudily lit, like pink and purple business where somebody was hit. Probably just pulled the driver's eyes out of the road for a bit. So I'm not doing this because we don't have time, but online on my accidents website, I decided later to go look at the Vision Zero map and see how these accidents related to the colored lines, which are all the high injury streets marked in Houston on the Vision Zero map. Every single one of them, almost every single one, was right in the middle of a high injury street area. So I have accident, high injury street, accident, high injury street, accident, high injury street, one after another, which I think is very striking for the police. This is a case where Jennifer Sotillo, who's a member of the HAS, had sent me some photos that she lives on Fairdale, very close to Fountain View in Richmond, and their townhomes were getting bombarded by business lighting. And then she showed me she was trying to do astronomy over here, and then this light went up. That was the one place she could stick a telescope. But she also, and then she showed me also what this lights look like. So you can see if you have closed mini blinds, which is what most of these apartments have, on the left, when you have a light like that pointed at it, you have a lot of white light in your bedroom. You don't need that much to suppress melatonin, even just coming around the edges of blackout shades. She also sent me a picture of her street, and I recognized it when this accident happened 6 months later. So here's Jennifer Sotillo, and this policeman who you saw at the beginning heard this commentary.
So yes, so we did have a major accident that was covered nationwide. 3 valets were killed as a driver was speeding down the street. But in that first picture of the street, you could see that there was a really bright light from one of these clubs that's shining down the street. Again, as we had talked about earlier, it's just pointing straight. It's not even trying to light anything. It's just they tried to get the most powerful light that they could, not realizing that it creates major blind spots. And so this driver was coming. And when you're driving, anybody, even when I'm coming home from work, I cannot see anybody in the street. So I have to drive very carefully. But if you're not from this area, you wouldn't know that. And so tragically, 3 valets were killed. And there's a lot that, of course, surrounds that accident. But all of us in this neighborhood truly believe nobody probably even saw the valets because of that light. But not only does that light create a blind spot as you're driving, it also creates a blind spot at the front of our property. So we have a lot of neighbors that walk their dogs, and a group of people could be hiding and you would have no idea that they're there because the light is so strong and blinding that it creates these major dark pockets. So it's really sad.
Yeah, so this is a young, barely 17 years old. He was hired by one of the other valet companies, and now there's a civil lawsuit because he was too young to be hired. And he was doing donuts in a parking lot, and the police approached him and he tore down the street. The police tore down behind him also. I told the police chief that could have been your guys hitting the 3 valets. And they had been trying to get rid of that light for a year with their city council office and couldn't do it. We had no law requiring it to be any different from that. So this is a striking one. This is one of those ones where maybe you see where the person was hit, which is on the right side of the crosswalk. But when I was, this is close to my parents at Lazy Hollow in Westheimer, but when I was photographing, I could hear voices in the left side of the crosswalk, but I could barely see them. So it's those 2 parking lot lights, which are not even lighting that parking lot diagonally across the street, are blocking the left side of the crosswalk. So I don't know whether the person was drunk, not drunk. It's 5:15 in the morning, green light, red light. Doesn't matter. The driver would have no idea that the person was crossing from the left side of the crosswalk to the south side. So he would have appeared out of nowhere. And this is one of the more horrific accidents. I won't go into it. But again, I think I have time. Again, I think the lights were a lot of the problem, at least having no advance notice. We also now have aviation accidents are a problem. So on the left side, I have a whole video of commentary on this, is the tour helicopter that hit the tower. And the commentator mentions that all 3 tower lights are on, but the lowest one cannot be seen because it is against Houston City lights. And from the helicopter pilots, she was looking for another helicopter. And that tower was in her line of sight. She wasn't finding the other helicopter lights easily or the tower lights. So the second light is also against city lights. Pilots learn that if something's at your altitude, it's even with the horizon. If it's above you, it's above the horizon. If it's below you, it's below the horizon. So she wasn't seeing the helicopter and she wasn't seeing the lights, and she slammed into that tower. This is a Reagan National. I found that every single article had some professional pilot saying it's almost impossible to see landing lights from jets landing in all of those city lights. So they think that he probably saw 2 jets, a jet a little higher than the city lights, and identified that as the correct jet, and assured the air traffic controller, yes, we see the airplane, yes, we see the jet coming in, and then slammed into it. There was one of these articles specifically had a Black Hawk helicopter pilot who flies that route, and he said it's virtually impossible to see jets coming into runway 33 against those city lights. Now, even more recently, this is one of the things I was updating, we had the LaGuardia plane. And I noticed in the videos, which this is kind of blurry, but the video, I know it was raining that day. And I noticed that behind the fire truck, which hit, everyone knows about this accident, happened a couple of weeks ago. So in the video, we see the fire truck from the front and it's coming up and hitting it. But I noticed at least behind the fire truck, there's a lot of white lights. And there were two more, the air traffic controllers cleared him and then tried to not clear him. He missed that. He also missed seeing red runway status lights, which every driver is supposed to know, even if you're cleared to cross the runway, if you see these red lights lit, you're not supposed to cross. So that's still the big mystery, why the other fire truck stopped, but the first fire truck kept going. And I was wondering, could it just be distraction from trying to drive in a bunch of glare? I now know, I thought, I don't know what it was seeing, but that's a different angle of LaGuardia Airport on the right from a collision that happened between two Delta jets in October 2025. So I now know, at least from some other angles, they're dealing with white lights. And if you have rain, that kind of scatters it even more. So I look, is it possible to miss red light if you're being bombarded with white light? This hasn't been determined yet, but then a few days ago, this came out in the New York Times. Some of their sources are saying one of the things they're looking at is the role of weather and light pollution in that accident. Okay, now we're going back to the apartments. This was great apartment lighting until under new management, it became this. Yeah, this is at Stella Lincoln and Braeswood. And then for over a year, they had this free rent sign is finally down, that they had free rent. But this is what people in apartments are living with. This one you can see well because the apartments are white. If they were a darker color, and also because they have a lot of down lighting too, so you can actually, at least you can see. But I can't imagine trying to sleep with all of that out there. So then the other question is aesthetics. If you're a Stranger Things fan, do you want to live in our dimension or the upside down? I notice that Hollywood often uses blue light to make you feel afraid. Or for the baby boomer edition, there's the Hallmark Channel versus the Addams Family. And my lawn looks just like the Addams Family. I haven't gotten a newer street light yet. And then when we were doing a night walk in Glenmont, and we had a couple of police officers with us, I couldn't find any warm shielded light, but this is not it. This just shows kind of they're like, oh, you see color so much better with white light. No, everything looks gray. You actually have more saturated color with the warm light. But I was also able to show them side by side. It was an exposed warm light, but it was faint and gentle next to a white, about 6 feet away, a white wall pack, very high glare. And I could show them standing in one place, look how much better you see with the fainter light than with the bright light. And one of the policemen said, you're right, we need education. So we need education, but I can't seem to get it to them yet. This is the 5 principles for responsible lighting, which is basically all the way across. Use the light you want, you need when you need it. Use motion detection if you can. Use the warmest light, which is okay for your particular purpose. If you have to have wider light, you're doing construction or something, just use it when you need it. Yeah, it's just basically just use the minimum light that you need for the purpose. There is something that most advocates don't know, which Chris Monrad, who lit the city of Tucson, urged me to get, RP 818, stands for roadway and parking lot lighting. And this is one thing to get across is why the warmer light is actually more efficient. So there's 2 spectral sensitivity curves. When we're fully dark adapted, like amateur astronomers, then indeed, that's a scotopic curve. We actually top out for sensitivity on the bluer light. But in cities, when we're driving and we're still using our cones, we can see color. We're actually using the curve on the right, the photopic curve. So look where the blue is. It's way down there. It's actually the old warmer light that we see best. So when you look directly at the light, the blue light's much higher glare. But when you look underneath it, you don't need nearly as much warm light to see well. So actually, it's the warm light that's more efficient. So let's listen to the policeman. I'll show you some real life subtle warm lights you can see really well under.
Very impressed by her presentation. The things that I could say is possibly somebody in HPD could do some research about some of the most locations where we have the most crashes at nighttime. And that might be a pilot project to put the lighting up, and if it reduced crashes on that segment of street, that might carry some serious weight, because I see retrofitting the city no small project, but if it could be done, everything she said is so important because most people just don't really understand the melatonin issue and how it affects our bodies. But she made a good point there, but she just briefly touched on it. So it'd be a wonderful thing. And the one other thing is, I do believe that she made a great point with the lights that were in the back of the one business interfering with the security camera at the next apartment complex. If lighting engineers set up the lighting so the cameras are more effective, so much of the time, eyewitness information or testimony is good, but eyewitnesses are difficult to get. Eyewitnesses, you have to get them to come to court. Sometimes they don't want to cooperate. Sometimes they're terrified to cooperate. When we capture something on video, that oftentimes eliminates the need for the witness. So video is becoming more and more important to our job as cameras go up everywhere. But if light blocks camera views out, then the camera is almost useless to us. Thank you, guys.
So you can have light and video cameras to videotape after the effect, but what about using light to prevent a crime? Finally, I saw one on Nextdoor, the social media site. After all the car break-ins under the white lights are blazing away, someone posted this and I asked him if I could use it in his talks. There's two people in this video. There's a guy silhouetted in black in the background with all the white light blazing away. This is like 2 in the morning. But watch the guy over here going toward the sidewalk when I play this. So just all he needed was a faint porch light on a completely dark house to come on. He does an immediate U-turn. The guy in the back doesn't care that he's like in blazingly bright light because everyone's hiding behind it, their thick blackout shades so they can sleep. This is a beautiful new Exxon. The first good business lighting I've seen in a low-income area. It's at South Post Oak, where airport turns into Alum. It has both street names. And the reason we saw it was because we were going to, oh wait a minute, let me just, hold on, I'll get back to that. I should have had that slide right after. But we were going to another accident site. But this is lighting which adheres to our new lighting code. The problem with it is that it's only for new permitted lighting. So it's only for brand new buildings or for older buildings have to replace more than half of their lighting. So you can still put an individual light. And I was shocked that it doesn't cover multifamily homes. So they're just, all that bad apartment lighting is actually legal right now. This is some lighting that predates our ordinance, but there's good lighting. That's Rice University, walkway lighting. This is my favorite business, the one Denny's at not too far from here, at Westheimer, a little east of Derry Ashford. You might go by there, and you can look directly at the LEDs. They look like little yellow dots when you look up at them. And this is in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I haven't talked too much about amber lighting, but I do have a little bit about that for astronomy and for sleep. Amber is even better than a soft white. But I'm thinking we could get better public acceptance if we show them areas where you use judiciously a little bit of soft white mixed in with amber. People might prefer that in a park instead of just the complete amber. And I'm thinking, that's, the perfect's the enemy of the good. And this just goes to show Steve Goldberg arranged this. I picked the light, but we changed out some wall packs from 80 watts to 32 watts, and you actually see much better. So you could use 2 32-watt lights there to replace like 400 to 600 watts of light on the right and see better, probably see behind there better. So this is proof with known change to lower wattage that you see better with lower wattage when you shield it and use a warm light. And then if you're having this problem, it's my favorite, in your neighborhood or if you're outside of Houston,
This is the Cree RSW LED streetlight. Energy cost savings your city needs, with warm color temperatures and low glare your citizens want. Utilizing Cree's patented WaveMax technology, it directs light where it's needed and away from people's bedrooms. The groundbreaking, nobody will want to saw it down, Cree RSW streetlight.
So this is one of the first low glare streetlights, and Chris Monrad of Tucson recommended I send it to the city, which of course I did, and CenterPoint refused to test it. They said, no, we'd have to use an even higher wattage, which was false. They're using half the wattage we're using in Tucson. So I just want to let you know, if you have a chance to do truly good streetlights, a couple of vendors that can do it. This is Crossroads LED based in Oklahoma. They've been putting in some excellent amber lighting in New Mexico. And there's two kinds of amber. There's a narrow band amber, which really protects astronomy because you can filter it out. And there's a broadband amber, which, as one of our advisors said, it looks like the old lighting, except you can tell the grass is green. And then the other vendor is Cooper Lighting, which has done a few of the small towns in Massachusetts. And they just were willing to do what they asked for. So these are 17-watt, I think in the neighborhood, 17-watt lights. We use 45 watts. 17-watt lights dimmable to 12. And they chose an amber color, and Cooper Lighting was willing to do it for them. They're saving 80% over their older lights. We're saving 50%. Another thing you might come up against, well, we need the white light because we need to see color. The guy who told me that was a representative for Cooper Lighting who lives here in Houston. Then he sent me this brochure. And as you can see, the color rendering index over here, it's 70 for all colors. They have a couple specialty lights that get up to 80. 70 is good enough to tell that a red is red and a green is green. You need 60 to start identifying colors. The shade might be a little different, but it doesn't matter whether it's amber 2200 or daylight 5000K, they all have 70 CRIs, just different shades. And so Buddy Stefanoff of Crossroads LED told me he was able to push through with New Mexico because that was their objection for their highways, and then they allowed him to put some broadband amber on their highways. And I have some friends who live there, they said it's really nice. And I think I can probably just stop there. This just shows that Los Angeles really did cut its wattage, which CenterPoint said was impossible when they went to a warmer light. And they've been continuing. And then for your own home, there are variable color bulbs and variable brightness bulbs. You can redden your screen, and you can show them. We actually got this sentence in 2017 from Art Acevedo, police chief. Non-glare soft lighting and downward shielding is optimal when selecting lighting products to achieve optimal visual results, but nobody knows about this. But I have on my education page, you can print out the brochure and show people that, and it says Houston Police Department on it. And if anyone has time for this, this is just fun. Some of you may have already seen this. If all else fails, try this. It's the 2019 grasshopper invasion in Las Vegas. One of the videos makes a point, the white light that they like.
Oh my God, I am so scared out of my car right now. These is like everywhere. They're inside the store. We was down on the strip and it was crazy. Like, it was bad. Like, I can't do it. Like, seriously.
Well, it makes the point that it's hard on business while it was there. I wanted if anyone had showed a white light next to an amber light. I found a 2-second screenshot from an amateur video, and it looks like this. So these are both on my website on the gallery page if you want to use them. And that's so striking. So if ever, if nothing else works, this should work, I hope. Yes, yes. I remember Jones Hall covered with green grasshoppers one year. So we've also had invasions. Yeah, and with yeah, and with a $25 lamp and a couple of McDonald's Happy Meal toys or action figures, you can show people with their own eyes in a dark room that they see better with a shielded warm light. This is the lowest level. There's one green dot. This is the highest level. So you can show how little light people need if there's no glare to see the resultant light. So I think that's it. I was just going to show really quickly. Oh yeah, just that on my website, if you need it. This is all the stuff for the police, the disappearing pedestrian video, the whole talk where that policeman changes his mind, and it's 30 minutes, and then our PowerPoint of accident sites, and which covers aviation, rear ends of police cars. They found out when they turned down the lighting and police cars at stops, and they practically stopped the rear ends. It's very hard for drunk drivers to cope with that when it's really just glaringly bright and fast strobing. And I just end with a picture of Flagstaff just to show that it's possible for a city of 100,000 to have a sky like this 6 miles away if we just all did it. But boy, is it a hard subject. I think we have to convince the police. I think it's the only way, personally. And there hasn't been a lot of focus on that in the dark sky community. So we have to
so much.
do it systemically. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Yeah, please.
Yes.
They basically have a light ordinance that's in the works now based on your website, your information.
And since you mentioned that, I was at a party and with retired symphony members lived there. And they said, we will do that if we get the ordinance. They said, we are guilty. They said, we're on this bay where people use white lights. They say to use all night. And he said, the people across us are pointing at us to attract fish for the fishing. So you need to talk to this. Yeah, exactly. And he said sometimes underneath. Yeah, yeah.
Kind of statements, really. One, basically, if you're behind the emitter, the light has a big different effect. So if somebody's trying to hide in a dark spot and you're spotlighting them, that's a lot different than being in the spotlight or having the spotlight up high, lighting the whole area. And second, if you just look around in this room, you can notice all the different types of lights.
Colors.
I don't understand the purpose. Several of them hurt my eyes. I have light sensitivity issues myself. Why can't they all be like that dimmest amber one? It would light the room the same. So just in this room, you see examples of
Yeah, you see the difference,
the
right?
light problems.
Yeah, and inside there's a color called 3000K, which gets just a little bit brighter and still has a softness to it. Yeah, you got 5000s, you got 2700s, and something that. And probably some 3000s.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
We're going to fix that.
Exactly. It's a good point because I think the person who puts up the light, they're just seeing the lights behind them. They're not disturbed by their own light. It's only if it's across from them. So when people get neighborhoods to come up with ordinances, you can do this in an HOA. Cindy Longo Cassidy makes the point, what you want to talk about is not what they can't do to their own house, it's what your neighbor can't do to you. She says that has a lot more impact.
Yeah. Any more questions? Are there questions online? No questions online? Well, thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you. I know it's long. Thank you.
I have a small present for you. Thank you so much for the fantastic talk. Great. Yeah, fantastic. I learned a ton. Oh, my battery is running low, I see. So, so let me see.
Yeah.
So then, the last thing on the agenda
There is something. Okay, sorry.
is it's not building up yet. Well, there we go again. see. Well, it is flickering around a little bit, but I'm just gonna close it in a 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think online you'll be able to see my screen, but on the projector it's not. So, so basically, wrapping this up. So the next month's meeting on May 7th, we'll have our novice meeting. So it's a little bit different schedule. Chris is right now traveling to the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, armed with his Dwarf 3, I think, mini smart telescope. So he's hunting down targets in the areas that he's never seen before. So that's why we're doing the novice meeting a little bit later. And then the general meeting will be on May 1st. Same place. We're also going to do the torchy's tacos before, if you want to join us for dinner, also at the same time. So that was it for today. So I'll either see you at Prime Night on April 18th, or at the outreach programs, or of course back here in the general meeting. So thank you so much.